All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Today's lecture is 14.5, or Chapter 14, Section 5. It's all about women's rights, or the rights for women to become equal, get equal pay, and have suffrage, which is Pee Wee's Playhouse word of the day. Suffrage. That's a tough word to say. It's a tough word to spell. But again, we could clap it out with 2 syllables. Suffrage. There you go. The big idea is that the reform movement, in America, all these different reform movements, whether it's through writing with transcendentalists, and now you have abolition, taking key, and that's kind of a snowball rolling down the hill, getting bigger as it goes. And along with that, a lot of the reformers who started abolition were women. That was in the last lecture. And these women carry over those same ideas, and now that they understand how to meet together in big groups, how to, group up together and let their voice be heard, they start to call for equal rights for women as well, which is voting rights and equal pay. All right, moving on to the next slide. Sorry again, no song of the day. And because I'm at school, I can't get my daughter to sing for you. So main idea number 1 goes over that again. This abolition movement that's going on at the same time, 1830s, 40s, and 50s, influences these women reformers to lead to their own call for new rights. They want equal pay. They want equal, say in society. They want voting rights, which is suffrage. They're looking at and using the Declaration of Independence as a key, just like the abolitionists use the Declaration to say all men are created equal, where you have, whether it's black or white or whatever color, salmon color for boys, we can't say pink, we say salmon. And for the girls, they look at aubergine, which is a form of purple. I know I've impressed a lot of the female listeners by knowing an aubergine color is purple. I can't spell aubergine, I just know it's a form of purple. But whatever color you were, you have equal rights in America. That's what the abolitionists called for. And now you have the females looking at it in the same way, saying that when Thomas Jefferson wrote, all men are created equal, he meant all citizens in America, men, women, whatever color, including salmon and aubergine. So again, just like abolition, you have critics, like it says right here on the bottom. You have critics against this call for equal rights for women. You have men and women saying that women should keep their role in society, stay at home, be cooking and cleaning, and that's it. They shouldn't get a right to vote. They should kind of be left beside or different than the men who have those rights to vote. So just like abolition with the people who wanted to continue slavery, there are people in America who wanted to keep women kind of in their place in society at the time as well. The early women reformers, a lot of this will overlap with the abolition movement, are the Grimke sisters. You have Sarah, who was a writer. She would write pamphlets about equal representation or equal rights for women. Angelina, her sister, actually refused to obey or refused to promise to obey her husband when they went through their marriage ceremony, which is interesting. So boys, when you get out there and get married in the future, it'd be interesting to go through your vows for your wife to say, no, I'm not going to agree to that, and then continue the ceremony anyway. It would probably take some people back in the crowd, but she did that being a leader of this movement. You have a transcendentalist writer, Margaret Fuller, who wrote that, her important thing she wanted to get across was that everyone is individual. You can't group everybody together, and that everybody has their own rights equal to each other, and everybody's an individual. We're not going to group all the women together, just like we couldn't group all the slaves together and everything like that. So she was a writer that did that. Her writings or poems would go around the people. They would read it. And again, just like the abolition movement, the more people read, the more people started to support this idea. And they get their ideas through education reform. All these other reform movements, again, the more women are being educated, the more they feel they have this voice to go out there and make their voices known, get their groups together and start calling or rallying around equal rights and equal pay. You have Sojourner Truth again, who was born, her actual real name is Isabella Baumfree, and she changes her name to Sojourner Truth. And if you look, she takes that name because she feels she's on a mission, which is sojourner, or traveler. She's on a mission to spread the truth about equal rights for women and abolition for the slaves. So she's one of those people, and like it says on the bottom, she never learned to read or write. She was just a great speaker, and she would go everywhere, and people were impressed with the fact that she could control audiences just with her voice and what she would have to say. So again, the Grimke sisters and Sojourner Truth are back with this new reform movement for women. The second main idea is the call for women's rights, and again, the opposition are against that. The movement's growing. If you're a woman and you hear this, most of the women out there thought we should be equal, or at least try to get that. They want the right to vote. They want to be part of government. And again, you have men on that side as well, just like, you had the men and women together involved in abolition. You have some men speaking out for women's rights, thinking that this is a great idea. And again, on the opposite side, you have both men and women believing women don't need new rights, that they're perfectly fine, and like it says on the bottom, they lack the physical or mental strength to survive without men's protection. So tomorrow in class, if you're a girl or a boy, look around and say, am I physically and mentally as strong as the people around me? If you think no, better start some working out with your brain at least. I'm moving on. Here's a nice little picture showing you at the time period. There's a great word for Mr. Dwyer to try to spell today. Anti-suffragists. That's just fun. Even if you sound it out or clapped it out, there's like 15 syllables or so in there, I think. And if you look, you see the headquarters where it's just a group of people that are opposed to the idea of women voting. So again, you get the nice little picture of the women walking by. You don't know if this lady down here is angry or agrees with this, that women should not have the right to vote. You have no idea based on the painting or the picture, but you get an idea that she's probably walking by looking at these 5 men standing there saying in her mind, like, I can't believe you'd stand there. We should have equal rights. We should be able to vote. The third main idea is the Seneca Falls Convention, the big kind of antithesis of the women coming together to get their voice heard. And the lady that starts this is Elizabeth Cady Stanton and her friend Lucretia Mott. They have a convention in New York, near New York City at Seneca Falls. They base it on Elizabeth Cady Stanton on her honeymoon went to London to actually something called the World Anti-Slavery Convention, kind of a group of abolitionists from around the world. And while she was there, being a woman, and this is in London, she was actually told she could not sit with the men. She had to sit behind a curtain to listen. She had no rights, even as a woman over in London, England. And that was different. She wanted to bring this, she had men sit with her who supported her cause to have new rights. And she brought that idea back, or that fire to have more rights, to America. And she makes a friend, Lucretia Mott. They together kind of open up this big convention for all women, men, and anyone else to come, reformers, to try to get together to get equal rights for women, to get equal pay, to get voting rights, suffrage. And they write down a Declaration of Sentiments, which mimics our Declaration of Independence. If you look at it, there is what it goes over. It uses the Declaration as kind of like their outline to base everything on it for. The authors included 18 charges against men, which was equal to the 18 charges Thomas Jefferson and John Adams and Sam Adams put against the King of England. So in a way, women at this time are saying that there's 18 problems. They have just as many with, the men out there, kind of like America had 18 problems with the King of England. As we all know, though, Jay-Z had 99 problems. So if you're looking back in music for that. It was signed by over 100 people, not just women, but men as well. 240 some people attended the Seneca Falls Convention. You have another reformer, Frederick Douglass, who was an abolitionist, who also showed up. So again, this whole idea of reform movements, they all go in and out of each other. They kind of go together. The reformers for abolition were also the reformers for women's suffrage. So you saw a lot of the same names in and out of both reform movements. The last thing are other women's rights leaders at the time. You have a lady named Lucy Stone, who's pictured in your book. She was working for the Anti-Slavery Society, and again, another gifted speaker going around, stirring up the idea of getting women's rights, equal pay, voting rights, everything else. You have Susan B. Anthony, who probably a lot of you have heard before, who looked into a political movement to move for women's rights. Her, again, argues for equal pay, and that her quote was that no woman could be free without a purse of your own, meaning that if you're going to work for it, you get that money to go spend on your own. And you have Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who helped form that Seneca Falls Convention. She was writing documents and giving speeches everywhere, and she ends up being the founder and leader of a group called the National Women's Suffrage Association. Again, big words, clap them out if you struggle. Hopefully you took some notes, and I will see you tomorrow. One last point, the book pointed out in the corner, which was an interesting fact, that this is happening in the 1830s, 40s, and 50s. And by 2006, women in America were making 80% of what a man would make at an equal job, meaning that even though these women started it, almost now 200 years ago, it's still not 100% in America yet. So hopefully we're on the right track in getting there. Thank you.